Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Tech Talk with me, Kazeem. Today, we're going to be talking about the journey of a developer from student to specialist. And I have Lee Eggleston with me on the show today. Hi, Lee, and welcome to the Tech Talk Show.
Hey, Kazeem, thanks ever so much for inviting me to come speak today.
So, let's kick things off with an introduction, Lee. Who is Lee and what do you do?
Sure, no problem. Who is Lee? Sure. So I've been a software development manager for the last 6 and 7 years. Uh, Before that, I went from junior to middle to senior developer. And I've recently sort of moved into developer relations. So that's me. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, have been for the last couple of years. And I like sort of experimenting with new technologies like augmented reality and machine learning and things like that. And I like creating websites to help other people as well. So some of my websites include things like visualstudiotips.co.uk, hackathontips.com, xamarinarkit.com, and most recently sort of the tech community calendar as well, techcommunitycalendar.com that is. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I want us to start the conversation by comparing between certifications on the job learning and the traditional CS degree. What's the difference between these? And from your advice now, which of them is the best option for a beginner?
Sure, yeah. I can talk about sort of my experience and some experience of some other people I know. As a dev manager for a number of years, I saw hundreds and hundreds of CVs and people coming into development from using lots of different paths. So my own personal experience, I did do a computation degree, but what I would recommend is to try and mix your experience, and I'll explain that a bit further. So you don't necessarily need a computing degree these days. But what I did was when I was doing my computing degree, I took a year out in industry between my third and fourth year, and worked for a whole year for AstraZeneca in web development. And then during that time, I also sat some Microsoft certifications. So by the time I graduated, I had my degree. I had a year's worth of experience underneath my belt. Yep. And I also had these Microsoft certifications. So I would recommend try and do a few different things like that if you can. Don't just rely on your degree. Don't just rely on certifications. Try and get a mix of different things.
I know you're very vast in the area of development, right? Software development. So, given your experience, how long does it take for anyone with zero knowledge to become a competent developer? To where they can start to put together their CV and applying for development job.
Yeah, it's a really tricky question to answer because there is no one answer. It's going to depend from person to person, and more importantly, I would expect their motivations for why they want to become a developer. Are they looking for a career change? Is it just something they want to treat as a hobby? In my opinion, you're going to have a much better chance of success if you're really, really motivated to become a good developer. And I would recommend you work on sort of your own side projects. It's all good and well doing sort of these boot camp courses and learning all the theory, but unless you're sort of putting that theory into practice, usually through your own sort of side projects, build your own sort of website, that kind of thing, you're not really going to develop that mindset of developer that has where you're constantly hitting roadblocks and working ways around them and working out how to do certain things that you're trying to achieve. So I'd say there is no answer to how long it would take. I can't answer that, I'm afraid, but it really does depend on the person and their motivations and how they're going about their journey to become a developer.
Next, I want to ask you, or for us to divert a little bit now to a subject that I get asked a lot of questions about, which is full stack development, right? So first, can you help us understand what full stack development is and what a full stack developer do?
Sure, no problem. So when I joined Avanade, where I currently work, I joined as a full stack manager. So in the full stack role family. So we also have separate role families for front end and back end, but I joined it in the full stack role family. So I can talk on that for a bit. So the way I see it, a full stack developer is just someone who doesn't necessarily specialize in front end or back end or data or anything like that. And the best analogy I can kind of think of is, you know, in the UK anyway, we have GPs, general practitioners, who we go to when we're not feeling very well, and they've got great knowledge on a vast array of medical topics, and they can help diagnose you and then send you off to a specialist. And then you've got specialists who might specialize in brain surgery or maybe dentistry. That's not a bad example, but I wouldn't expect like a GP to be able to perform brain surgery, every single type of different medical intervention needed. And it's the same for development. I wouldn't expect any developer necessarily to be able to be amazing at front end, amazing at back end, amazing in the cloud, amazing creating APIs and front end mobile apps. Whilst there are maybe a few people that can do that, there aren't really that many. So that's why we have kind of full stack developers. And then if you ask me, well, what really defines a full stack developer? Then I think it's probably someone who could, this is just my opinion, could put together a website and put it live. It wouldn't necessarily have the best front end or use the latest front end technologies, but they should be able to create some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, create the whatever server middle layer that they're using, whether it's .NET these days or something like that, and then have it talking to a back end. Again, these full stack developers generally aren't specialists or very well versed in the front and the back, but they're able to put something end to end together, or at least design something. And that's why I think lots of full stack developers go on to specialize in architecture, is because they have this experience in this whole sort of end to end holistic view of a solution.
So in your view, which is better, to just be a back-end developer or front-end developer, or do you think it's just better to be both?
So it all depends on what drives you and what you enjoy doing. If you enjoy doing front-end design and development, you should specialize in the front end. If you enjoy doing back-end and you don't care about the front end, then you don't have to touch the front end, specialize in the back end. But the full stack role really does appeal to those people that want to have a bit of everything. They want to know how the little bits work when all joined up. They might not be experts in front end or back end, but they have that knowledge of a bit of everything to create that solution. So there isn't a right answer to that. Front end's not better than back end or vice versa. I would always recommend you try and widen your knowledge and experience and skills in front, middle, and back, and then you'll have more tools in your tool belt.
There's going to be a role separate for the front-end developers and the back-end developers. But why do people choose to combine the two?
I think, just speaking about my own experience, I think it's about curiosity, right? So when I started out in web development, more specifically in web accessibility, I learned about the HTML and the JavaScript and the CSS and putting something on the screen. And then you get curious and think, right, well, I can make something look nice on the screen or in a UI that you can interact with. But then how do I go away and save that information? So then you might go off and look at different ways of saving that information, different backend data stores. So I guess it's all about curiosity. And whether you are a full stack developer or front or back end specialist, it's going to depend on what you're curious about. But I'd always recommend you do what you enjoy. If you enjoy front end, don't ever let anyone make you try and branch out into back end or become full stack. If you enjoy back end, don't feel bad about not being good at front end. And if you enjoy doing full stack development and you you don't necessarily want to be able to learn every single new front-end JavaScript or every new different data source in the back end. Don't feel guilty about being a full stack developer. You've got a good skill set of being able to put a solution in place. So it's impossible to specialize and be amazing at everything. So I'd recommend, don't even try. Do what you enjoy. There's a much better chance you're going to get better at something that you're enjoying rather than something you're not enjoying.
I want to ask you, what advice do you have for anyone new to development or considering that career switch into development? What would be your advice to those people?
Sure. So I'd start by saying, have fun. It's really difficult to learn something unless you're enjoying it. So try and bring an aspect of fun to it. If that means creating a website or an app or a mobile app for a football club that you're a part of or something like that, then do that. It is very difficult to learn something when it is just theory and you've not got anything invested in learning that, and you can't implement it anyway. So I'd always say try and have fun, try and start small, and try and find some sort of personal side projects that you can take that theory and go to work with and help implement. Some other things other advice I would say is to ask for help as well. It's very easy to be overwhelmed and think that you don't know everything, because you won't, obviously. But it's I see a lot of people giving up because computing can feel like this vast array of subjects and very, very deep and wide. But don't give up. Ask for help. All of us, when we started out, asked for help to get better, and asking for help is a skill. The people that are best at asking for help are going to be the ones that get better quicker as well. So ask for help, and also share what you've learned, especially if you've spent ages trying to find some information that you couldn't find anywhere, but you finally found it. That's valuable information that someone else is going to be searching for. So try and share that information as well, whether it's on social media or your own blog or something like that.
What resources do you want to leave any newbie watching this at a later time now with, or now they can learn to code and be a good software developer?
So it's a good question. I actually tried to start collating some resources for new developers myself. So I put something together at a website called start-coding.com. So it's like startcoding.com with a dash in the middle. It's still pretty new, and you can tell that I'm not a UI specialist or front-end specialist, because there's not much there at the moment. So that's kind of just some books that are interested, some courses, some code camps. But other than that, I would personally recommend looking at MS Learn. It's not just Microsoft technologies. You can pick up Python and HTML as well on there. But the way they've structured the syllabuses and the way you can do the exercises to learn the things, I think is probably one of the best ways of learning that I can recommend. So check out start-coding.com and check out MS Learn as well.
Before we say bye-bye still, where can anyone looking to connect with you find you? How can people reach you?
Yeah. Sure. So I'm quite an easy person to find. There's not many other Lee Englestones. If you Google my name, you'll find me. You'll find my personal website, which I don't blog on very much these days, but at manchesterdeveloper.com. But I'm fairly active on Twitter at Lee Englestone, and also on YouTube at Lee Englestone as well. You shouldn't struggle to find me. Oh, on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, please do reach out if you've got any sort of questions.
So you've heard it from Lee on today's episode of the Tech Talk with me, Kazeem. So let's continue the conversation. If you have any question or any comment, please put them in the comment section down below. And on that note, then it's a bye-bye from myself and Lee, and I'll catch you on the next one.